The New York Jets have just made a sneaky signing that is absolutely huge for the team going forwards, as Darren Mougey's plan is starting to become very clear going forwards for the Jets, while we also do have a lot to go over regarding the Jets' future quarterback position, as after signing a quarterback who did have a nice run once upon a time, there is a lot of questions surrounding what the Jets are going to ultimately be doing, especially after when we look at the way that this Jets sort of prospect situation has turned out, with things starting to change in a huge direction. We already started to see that a little bit, and now we're going to continue to go into that. There is a lot to think about with the Jets right now, and recently things have taken another move as the Jets signed Bailey Zappe to a futures deal. And by signing Zappe to a futures deal, which is a one-year non-guaranteed contract, the Jets can add another quarterback to the roster for the start of next season's offseason workouts, with the money counting towards this year's salary cap. Teams typically sign a handful of players to futures deals at the end of each season to lock them in for the following year's mini camp and training camp, and that is what we saw when the Jets ultimately did sign Bailey Zappe. Zappe is an interesting move right here because he's bounced around a bit, going from team to team, being a starter for a little bit with the New England Patriots as well. There's a lot to look at with Bailey Zappe because a lot of moments in his career when he played, he was really heavily talked about. The Patriots really liked him for a while, and ultimately, though he didn't end up having a long career there is a lot to think about with Zappe, who was seen as someone with a lot of potential. So, with all this in mind, there's a lot to think about, especially how this pertains to the draft, and more specifically Dante Moore, who has been the guy most connected to the New York Jets. But before we get into all the news today, we're proud to announce this video is brought to you by Kalshi. And if you download it using the link below and put in the code DIGESTNFL, you will get $20 when you trade your first 100. Now, Kalshi, it's the largest prediction market in the United States. And on their platform, you can trade yes, no on real life events, whether that's the news, sports, the weather, elections, and pretty much everything. And whether you're in New York, California, Texas, or anywhere across the country, Kalshi is live in all 50 states. Now, this is great for sports fans, as you can trade on game outcomes, playoff chances, or player performances on a regulated market where you can cash out at any time. Now, this is excellent for sports fans, especially because the NFL playoffs are officially here, and there is a lot of movement going on right now. And if you trade on Seattle, who has 20% of trades on them to win the Super Bowl with former Jets quarterback Sam Darnold, you will get $45 in return. Now, this is an excellent trade and one that I'm super interested in because the Seahawks look absolutely excellent right now. They have got a great defense, and Sam Darnold has been doing a phenomenal job. And guys, if you want to get in on the action and get that $20 when you trade your first 100, put in code DIGESTNFL. Thank you to Kalshi, but guys, let's get into the video. We have a lot to go over. Now, with everything surrounding Bailey Zappe, he is someone who has garnered a lot of interest over the past couple of seasons because he did spend some time with the Patriots, actually getting some good sort of reps as a starter, even at a good amount of points. Now, with Zappe specifically, he did play at Western Kentucky for a year, and also, there is a lot to like about him. As it was mentioned here by Barstool Western, that he does have more wins over teams with a winning record than Drake May, so that's just something to kind of joke about more than anything else. Obviously, May and the Patriots did beat the Chargers, so if you want to count the playoff win, which, you know, you should, then yeah, obviously it's tied now. But Bailey Zappe did start 9 games in his career, and Barstool Western Kentucky wants to see him be a starter somewhere. So it was really just a funny point more than anything to talk about here. But Zappe has appeared in 15 NFL games in his career. Bailey Michael Zappe, great middle name. Someone else on the screen also has that middle name. He did have a record of 4-5 as a quarterback, mainly with the Patriots, throwing for 2,223 yards. I wish it was 2,222. That would have been way funnier. But the big issue is the interceptions. Threw 14 interceptions and only threw 12 touchdowns. So obviously that's where things kind of went wrong, when he really just kind of stopped performing quite well or really performing at all. The former 4th round pick didn't really get things going in New England for that long, and Zappe has bounced around a bit since then, most recently being in Cleveland with the Browns. Now, Zappe is known very well in college football for, well, one of the great college football seasons we've ever seen. He had the most yards per game of any player ever. I mean, the man threw for 5,967 yards and 62 touchdowns at Western Kentucky over 14 games. Man was an absolutely legendary quarterback over at Western Kentucky, and ultimately that did get him drafted. And when you look at someone like that who obviously put up these numbers, it is exciting to look at. It's also exciting to note for the Jets because right now, I mean, Tyrod Taylor is not going to be on the team next year, most likely. Taylor ultimately is going to be a free agent. There's a good chance because he dealt with injuries, the Jets will want a backup quarterback who's going to be a little bit more health conscious. Again, especially because if they do end up drafting Dante Moore, there's a very good world where Moore is going to need some time before he instantly becomes a starter for the Jets. But Zap once upon a time got Tom Brady comparisons very, very briefly, as he did have some nice games out there, including this one right here back in 2022 when he threw for 3,009 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a nice game. Obviously, StatMuse showed that photo of Tom Brady right there, their little StatMuse illustration and all. And overall, Bailey Zappe still did have the 3rd most passing yards in a season. So ultimately, just some cool numbers from Bailey Zappe overall. A talented player who, when we look at it, is someone who the Jets will bring into training camp. And it would be interesting to see if he ultimately is able to make the team. We'll see what happens with Zappe going forwards as well, especially because quarterback is the most talked about position for the Jets. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the question is if is Dante Moore going to declare? Obviously, there's the Dylan Raiola stuff, and we are going to talk about that in its own video itself because there is a lot to think about with that situation, and it's not as clear-cut as a lot of people may think. However, with right now, with Dante Moore, we do have to assume he's still going to be the Jets pick. I'm still guessing that Moore is going to end up going to the draft. This has less to do with Raiola than me just thinking that was going to happen before. And I mean, Pro Football Reference, jeez. Pro Football Focus, PFF did talk about the Jets and just the mock draft that they most recently came out with. Once again, Mendoza is going to be the 1st overall pick. He's a lock to go to the Raiders. And they do have the Jets taking Dante Moore, saying as long as Moore enters the draft, the Jets will likely select whichever quarterback the Raiders don't take. Moore's 90.3 PFF passer grade is 5th among all quarterbacks in the nation this year, while his 30 big-time throws are tied for the most. There was a lot to like. Now, obviously, if the Jets don't want to take a quarterback, and Arvell Reese of Reuben Bain does make sense for them also. But all signs point to the Jets ultimately taking a new quarterback for this team going forwards. It's just what makes the most sense at this point. It's what we really should all expect. And ultimately, there has been a whole lot of discussion surrounding this and surrounding if Dante Moore is going to go to the draft. I ultimately do think so. It just makes all the sense in the world that Moore is ultimately going to declare. And once Moore does declare, if assuming he does, then the Jets will obviously be the favorites to take him. But do you guys think that Dante Moore is going to declare for the draft? I mean, I just think it's pretty obvious he's going to. I don't see how you could turn down the chance to be a lock for a top 2 pick in the NFL draft. It just feels like something that would never happen, that he would decide not to go. But we are going to see ultimately how that all works out. Let me know your predictions down below. Do you like the idea of this Bailey Zappe signing? Tell me that as well. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day. Go Jets.